Madeline hardly adjusted her sunglasses as the wind tousled her perfectly styled hair. The sleek convertible she'd rented for her weekend getaway purred down the narrow country road, cutting through golden fields and scattered barns. She glanced at her phone, no signal. Great. Her GPS had rerouted twice, and she had no idea where she was. Frustrated, she slowed the car near a wooden fence that had seen better days. Dust danced in the afternoon sunlight, and off to the right, she spotted something unusual, a man, perhaps in his 60s, hunched over a broken-down tractor. His plaid shirt was stained with grease, and his sun-weathered face looked stern, focused. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, clearly struggling with a rusted part that wouldn't budge. Madeline hesitated. This wasn't her world. She wore cream-colored pants, a silk blouse, and designer heels, not exactly tractor repair attire. But something tugged at her heart. She remembered her father, a former mechanic who used to fix cars with her in their tiny garage before he passed. Without overthinking, she pulled the car to the side and stepped out, heels crunching against gravel. "Hi," she called, waving awkwardly. "Do you need help?" The man looked up, surprised, and slightly amused. "Unless you know how to pull a fuel line without snapping it, I doubt you can do much in those shoes." She grinned. "You'd be surprised." He stared at her for a moment, then slowly nodded. "All right then, city girl. Let's see what you've got." She stepped forward, careful but determined. For the first time in a long while, Madeline wasn't worried about her clothes or her schedule. Just the man, the machine, and a strange feeling that this dusty road wasn't a detour after all. Madeline crouched beside the old tractor, eyeing the stubborn fuel line as if it were a designer puzzle. The farmer, who finally introduced himself as Mr. Hale, leaned against the worn tire, arms crossed, watching her with a skeptical grin. "You ever fix one of these before?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not a tractor," she admitted, wiping sweat from her brow, "but I spent hours under the hood of my dad's '76 Mustang. Tools, grease, and engines don't scare me." Mr. Hale let out a low chuckle. "City girl with dirty hands. Didn't see that coming." Madeline smiled faintly, carefully loosening a bolt with the wrench he handed her. The tool felt heavier than she remembered, her hands clumsy from years behind laptops and conference tables instead of lug nuts and steel. Her once spotless blouse now bore a smear of dark grease across the shoulder. A strand of hair escaped her messy bun, clinging to her flushed cheek. Still, she kept at it, asking questions, adjusting the angle, and laughing softly when the wrench slipped and nearly hit her knee. Mr. Hale handed her a rag. "You're stubborn," he muttered. "Only when people tell me I can't do something." They worked in silence for a while, the soft creak of metal and the occasional chirp of a bird the only sounds between them. Despite their differences, there was an unexpected rhythm forming between them, an unspoken truce. At one point, Madeline glanced up and caught him staring. Not in judgment, but curiosity. There was something about her, an energy, a quiet strength, that challenged every assumption he had about rich city types. "Why'd you stop?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "Because you looked like you needed help." For the first time, Mr. Hale's rough exterior cracked. He gave a slow, thoughtful nod. "Maybe I did." After nearly an hour of teamwork, the tractor finally sputtered to life, coughing and rattling before settling into a low rumble. Madeline threw her hands in the air, laughing triumphantly. Mr. Hale gave a gruff nod of approval, but a hint of pride flickered in his eyes. "You did good," he muttered, brushing his hands off on a rag. "Most folks wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes. Madeline beamed, brushing the sweat off her forehead. "Told you I'm full of surprises." Just then, a ringtone cut through the dusty air. Mr. Hale pulled an old flip phone from his pocket and stepped away, turning his back to her as he answered. Madeline wandered toward a nearby fence, giving him space. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting golden light over the endless stretch of farmland. It was breathtaking. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the man's voice grew tense, and curiosity got the better of her. "I told you, Bradford, I'm not selling," Mr. Hale snapped. "I don't care what the offer is. This land has been in my family 3 generations. I won't let you tear it down for some shopping complex." There was a pause. "No, I don't need the money. And I sure as hell don't need investors telling me what to do with my land." Madeline's eyes widened. She had assumed he was just a hired hand or a small-time farmer. But this was different. This man owned the land. And from the sound of it, not just this field, but acres, maybe more. A truck pulled up just then, and a neighbor in overalls stepped out, tipping his hat. "Evenin', Mr. Hale. How's the landlord of half the county doing today?" Madeline turned sharply, stunned. "Landlord?" Mr. Hale simply nodded, as if it was no big deal. But to her, it changed everything. The sky had turned into a watercolor of oranges and purples, streaked with fading daylight as Madeline sat on the wooden fence, her elbows resting on her knees, watching the field sway gently in the evening breeze. The tractor now stood fixed, humming occasionally as if proud of its rebirth. Mr. Hale joined her, handing over a mason jar filled with sweet tea. She took it gratefully. "Thanks." He settled beside her, careful to leave just enough distance. Silence stretched comfortably between them, filled only by the sounds of cicadas and distant rustling trees. "I overheard your call," Madeline said softly, staring out at the horizon. "You're not just a farmer, are you?" Mr. Hale chuckled. "I suppose not. My father bought this land piece by piece. I just never saw the point in flashing it around like a badge. I plant. I harvest. I live." She glanced at him. "And refuse million-dollar offers from city developers." He met her gaze. "Some things aren't for sale." That hit her. She looked down at her hands, still smudged with dirt and grease. "My dad was the same. Stubborn. Loyal to a fault. He was a mechanic. Had a tiny garage, barely made enough to keep the lights on. But he loved it. Said machines made sense, unlike people." Mr. Hale's expression softened. "He teach you to work on engines?" She nodded. "Yeah. It was our thing. After he passed, I guess I forgot who I was. I started living this big city life, chasing titles, parties, expectations. Until today." He sipped his tea. "Funny how broken things bring people back together." She smiled faintly, blinking back unexpected tears. "I didn't realize how much I missed the quiet. The realness." Mr. Hale looked out over the land he'd tended his whole life, then back at her. "You ever think about staying?" Madeline turned toward him, surprised. "Staying?" He shrugged. "Sometimes people don't find peace where they're from. They find it where they're needed." Her heart skipped. For the first time in years, something felt right. And maybe, just maybe, she had finally found the place where she belonged. The next morning, mist rolled gently over the fields, casting a soft glow over the land as the sun rose. Birds called from distant trees, and the scent of dew on soil filled the air. Madeline stood on the porch of Mr. Hale's farmhouse, wearing borrowed boots and a simple flannel shirt. It felt strange, but comforting, like slipping into something she hadn't realized she'd missed. She sipped hot coffee as Mr. Hale approached from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. "Thought you'd be gone by now," he said, his tone gentle. "I almost was," she admitted, setting the mug down. "I packed everything. Sat in the car. Even started the engine." He waited. "But I couldn't leave," she said finally, her voice quiet. "Not yet." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I was hoping you'd say that." He walked her to a clearing behind the barn, where a few weathered blueprints were laid out on a folding table. "I've been working on this for a while. Planning to turn part of the land into a sustainable farming education center, for kids, schools, even adults who've never seen a real crop in their life." She looked at the plans, wide-eyed. "This is amazing." He nodded. "But I can't do it alone. I need someone with heart. And ideas. Someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty, even if she shows up in heels." Madeline laughed, the sound light and free. "You're serious?" As a rusted fuel line. She reached for one of the blueprints, heart pounding in her chest. It wasn't a business proposal, it was a second chance. "All right," she said, holding out her hand. "Let's build something real." Their hands met, not in contract, but in quiet promise. And on that land, something new began to grow.